I'm Laurie Elston, and today's monthly advanced legal nurse consulting topic is going to be your resume or CV, depending on what you use. And I think a lot of LNCs and some expert witnesses misunderstand how important the resume and CV is in these businesses, because it's the first thing you're going to give to an attorney when you're applying for work. And that is what they're going to be judging you by. And they need to be able to skim through your CV or resume and immediately understand what your skills are, what expertise you have. And it's important that your documents be proofread and free from any grammatical errors or punctuation errors, because that gives the wrong impression. And in fact, a number of professionals who screen resumes or CVs will automatically put a resume or CV to the side if it has errors in it. They immediately eliminate that person. And so I'm sure it's left some people wondering why they didn't get the job or why they weren't hired to work on a case. And they probably don't realize that either their resume or their cover letter was not strong enough. So that's what I'm here to go over today. We're going to spend 2 hours and we're going to go through all of those things, including some sample. I'm going to admit our last person, some sample resumes and CVs, so you can see what are good examples and what are poor examples, because I think that's the best way to learn. So I'm going to get started with my slideshow and go through the information, and you have the 10-page handout. So I will be following that chronologically as we go through the information. So as I said, we're here to either help you create your resume or CV if you don't have one, or if you've already written one, we're here to help you polish that and perfect that so that that first impression that you make with a potential client is the best it can be. And these are the topics we will be covering. I'll give you an outline, as you've seen in the written materials I've provided, that shows you each of the headings that I recommend you have in your resume and what order they should be in. And I talk about resume formatting, because the appearance of your resume is very important. And I will show you why, and you will see the difference here in just a minute. I go through content, meaning we're going to look at what a nurse typically puts in his or her resume and where you want to make changes, and list some skills as a nurse, if you haven't had any LNC experience, that will relate to and are relevant to the legal world. And that's a difficult transition for a lot of nurses to understand. So I help with that language. And as I said, I've attached some resume examples in your materials, and I'm going to be showing a lot more as we go through the lecture. I'll also spend a little bit of time on common grammar and punctuation errors, and I actually need to devote an entire class to that, because I think everyone's forgotten those rules of grammar that we were all taught in grade school and high school, and you need a refresher, because I see a lot of them in the resumes I review. And I've hired expert witnesses, so I have reviewed quite a few resumes, although many of them were physicians when I worked as a defense litigation attorney. And I've also been an expert witness myself. So I submit my resume, and I've been on both sides of the equation. And that is helpful in terms of the information I'll be sharing today. And if we have time, or depending on how much time there is at the end, I'd love to have you work on rewriting some things that don't convey what they need to, that I've taken from some LNC's resumes anonymously, and see if you can correct any grammar or punctuation errors and improve the language. So that's a quick overview of what we're covering. And to give you a little bit of information about me, if we haven't worked together before, I was a registered nurse for 7 years in a large acute care medical center, and then became an attorney. I initially practiced in Seattle for about a dozen years, and I represented physicians, hospitals, and nurses in malpractice actions. So a lot of defense litigation experience. And since I moved to California over 20 years ago, I've been practicing here and doing more variety. I've been doing quite a bit of nursing license defense. And I also have done some plaintiffs' personal injury in some serious injury situations, and some plaintiff medical malpractice cases where I felt it was warranted. And I got a lot of experience editing when I was in law school because I was on law review. And law review is a small group of people that are selected because they have written an article that was accepted and published. And I wrote an article on wrongful pregnancy and wrongful life, which was a novel legal concept in the 1980s. That's how far back it is. But part of my job as a member of the law review for the next 2 years was to edit articles for publication. And that included editing the legal citations for cases, which have a strict protocol in terms of how they have to be laid out. And so if you find that I'm a little obsessive compulsive, that might be part of where it came from. So, as I said, I think your resume is one of the most important documents you will write. It deserves your time and attention, and in a very detailed way. So it's really crucial to write your qualifications in a clear and concise manner. Concise means we don't want pages and pages to read through. We want to be able to skim that first and second page and have a pretty good idea of who you are and what you're offering. And you need to, as I said, convert some of your nursing skills, if you don't have any LNC skills that you can put down in your resume, so that they see you're at least ready to perform medical legal work and that you possess the necessary skills to do that. And proofreading. Proofreading is so important in the legal profession. We proofread over and over again, or at least I do. And it is embarrassing if there were any errors in the briefs we submit to a court. And if they see any errors and they're referring to something in your brief in, say, their written opinion, they will write the words or SIC next to any erroneous information that they're citing to indicate that it's an error, but they are quoting your brief, so it's not their error, it's that they're quoting you. So it just is unacceptable in the legal world. And for that reason, it's really important that you present these written materials to attorneys that are really foolproof in terms of how they're written. And you need to focus on your most relevant skills.